Head versus torso queries. Probably not something you think about from the beginning when you're building a search system, but rather something that's more relevant over time as you collect more and more usage data. Head, torso, and for completeness also tail queries basically are categorization based on the frequency, how often a query occurs. And head queries are high volume and a few different queries. So in e-commerce, there could be something like shoes, electronics, books, a very general query that many different users use, and these are often very exploratory. On the opposite end, tail queries have a low volume but many different queries, and they are very specific. So we have a few examples here, like for example, waterproof running shoes for white feet under $100. You might not even find a result for the tail queries or a bunch of the tail queries. And the categorization is very interesting, especially if you're doing performance optimization in your search system. And for that, you need a lot of logging set up. What is the input query? What's the output? What are the documents? And also, what was the user behavior after that? And for the head queries, what often is the case that you have users which are actually exploring. So they are not sure what they are looking for, and they are just browsing your catalog. So with those queries, you find a lot of documents which are relevant to the search query, but none have very high relevant scores because the search term occurs in so many different documents. And they tend to indicate that the user does not know what he wants yet. And without a user profile or additional information, these will be difficult to optimize, but you still can do some stuff. So for example, facets, which we will handle in another video, is something that's very relevant for the head queries because you can give the user the tools to explore the space, but also to encourage him to give you more information so you can return better results. And another thing you want to do is basically implement caching. If they occur very frequently, you can't just speed up the process and cache a bunch of the results or the first page. So you can retrieve it and show it faster. Also, broad matching, because you often, especially if it's a new user, do not really know what is his intent. And the worst thing that can happen, that none of the results which you returned are relevant. So you want to have like a broader matching algorithm. Tail queries are very different, but because they're very specific, they tend to have a higher conversion rate. So they are really valuable because a user already know what they are looking for or seem to know what they are looking for. And if you can find it, it's highly likely that they will convert. So here it is very important that you actually can match good results to the long queries. But in terms of performance optimization, you do not really want to optimize for one specific long tail query. You want to optimize for the bag or for the group of long tail queries, because if you optimize on one specifically, it's likely that your overall system degrades. And if you can see that a large number of users actually churns after you returned it, you already have an indication that your system's underperforming and that you want to change something. If you, on the other hand, also see that you often do not really have any results to return based on the queries, based on the relevancy scores, because they do not pass a threshold for semantic similarity or something else, or do not hit any documents based on the terms, you actually have an indication where you have gaps in content or in your product portfolio in e-commerce. And if you one single query or one user doesn't indicate much, but if you have a group of very similar queries looking for the same content or similar content, similar products, you actually have a good indication, hey, what can I add to my portfolio? And it might be worth thinking about. Toast queries fall right in the middle. And I think here I like to spend significant amount of time to actually optimize the search engine, because they aren't so specific that it's likely I'm hyper optimizing for one specific area. And they also carry already a bunch of information which I can use to improve the query. So for example, if someone is looking for running shoes, wireless electronics, you can actually do a lot of interesting stuff like synonym matching, query expansion, or even relaxation, and develop very specific matching strategies for the queries. Also use some form of classifiers, entity recognition, and the interesting stuff. And here often there is significant room for improvement, but also the place where you can do the more relevant stuff. And because we just talked about it, basically query relaxation and query expansion, which is something we will be doing an episode on too, is of course also relevant for the long tail queries and the head queries. Perfect. This is it basically on head versus torso queries. I think what's most interesting is basically like this distribution. Try to produce it for your own search queries. If you still have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, we will be doing a lot of these like shorter episodes on different aspects of search over this podcast season. If you want to have an episode on one topic which is top of mind for you at the moment, ping me in the comments or just shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, it's your preference. See you soon.